All right, Dixon's going to
Okay.
get us going.
So question one, I should say, we did this quiz internally a few months ago with data intelligence, so the group under Mike Sharkey here. And it's a tough one. Like, don't expect to get many more than 5 of these correct. I think our best was 7 out of 10. You're not allowed to play. Mike's doesn't count. Hopefully you guys use a name that you recognize or that we can recognize, so you can hit me up on Slack after I can get you a prize. I think we gave out coffee last time, but the coffee's in that room today. So let's get started here. So first question, hopefully you're in there, and it looks like we have 12 responses out of 18. I'll give you a little bit more time to get it figured out. 2 more. Give you a few seconds since it's the first question. I think one of those is me.
I'm so happy 0% said I don't know what analytics that is.
Yes.
I was worried about that.
All right, 2000. So this is actually kind of rigged. It's somewhere between 2000 and 4000. I changed the wording of the question, but didn't update the answers. It's 2000 people that can tie to an ASU right because they opted into cookies. So there's a big caveat there. So I should give total credit for that. How many unique faculty and staff viewed a Tableau dashboard in July of 2022? Boom, you guys are good. I hope you can see all the possible responses on your screens because I should be scrolling down here. How many unique faculty and staff ran an SSRS report builder report in July 2022? And you may have guessed it, but we will go over this jargon later in the presentation. Bonus point if someone says, I don't know what SSRS is, for honesty. Wow. Good mistake on this one. Go try them.
Sure. How many unique faculty staff currently have an Amazon workspace?
And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's we'll go over it later, but it is a way to securely access the data warehouse. So it's a virtual machine that typically content creators will use to create reports. 617. So you guys were close on that one.
How many unique faculty staff have used Alteryx Designer in the past 45 days?
Mike and I were just talking. If you ask our Alteryx sales reps, they'll give you a higher number probably as we dispute that count. We've only been threatened to be sued once in the past 5 years, I think. I don't think it actually happened, but not by Alteryx. It is 144. Nice job there. We'd love it to be 288 in the future, maybe. And how many unique faculty staff have used Report Builder to publish that SSRS content that 2,000 people are using each month in the analytics portal? Yeah, that was my effort to conceal what the right answer might be. Of course. Mike the cheater. All right. So if you haven't heard of Power BI, that is Microsoft's big data viz product, and that is definitely a competitor to what we use primarily in Tableau. This will be an interesting one.
If you were in our presentation yesterday, you should know the answer.
That was 4, a whopping 4 people. So reach out to the HR data team. Denise D'Souza really loves that tool. She's built a great dashboard with it that is heavily used. So we do use that tool at ASU. We just don't advertise it a ton. And if I'm curious, show of hands, how many people have used My Reports or know what that is? This is the tool we've been trying to get people off of for about 10 years now. It was bought and killed by Oracle. So that happens a lot in our world, unfortunately, despite our best efforts.
All right. How many Tableau dashboards, SSRS reports, and Excel CSV files do we have metadata for in analytics.asu.edu?
Maybe the giveaway is in the title of this session. I don't know if we'd be meeting here if the answer were just 250. Finding and using reports is difficult because I have quite a bit, 10,000 or more. Here's the bonus question from Mike. I think he can nail it. He's a sports guy. Last NBA season, the Phoenix Suns point guard Chris Paul passed another Suns legend, Steve Nash, to become third in all-time assists with 10,336 total assists. Name one of the two players who are still ahead of him. So 2 right answers here. You only have to pick one. Twyla, you were a point guard, right?
I sure
Yeah.
was. So I have to know this answer.
Assist number is what I want to know.
No comment. I was a shooting point guard.
I was a starter in high school until my buddy just skyrocketed above me in height, and I became part of the bench mob my senior year. All right, so LeBron James. That was a good diversion, to have on here, but it's John Stockton and Jason Kidd. John Stockton is so ridiculously far ahead. I don't think anyone will ever catch him. He had an insane career. Hope you guys can see this. This is for the metalheads in the audience. I'm sure there's 0 of you. What does this band logo say? My favorite story recently I heard was a buddy who's from Iceland in a metal band was out here and saying that he was in Las Vegas wearing a Black Dahlia Murder hat, I think. And this 70-year-old woman went up to him and said, "How do you know about that? I listen to true crime all the time. How do you know about this serial killer?" He's like, "Oh, it's just a band that I like." And nobody got it. It's Wheels in the Throne Room. They're a bunch of hippies from the Pacific Northwest. But thank you so much for participating in our Slido. Hopefully you learned a little bit. And congrats, Sam. A whopping 4 out of 11. Is Sam online or in the room? Oh, love it. All right, hit me up on Slack for your prize. You want to talk a little bit about the homepage?
Yes. So, and we'll funnel through the slides so you'll kind of see what important pages are. But this is the analytics website. This pretty much has all the reports that you need. Just kidding. That's probably not the case. But we'll talk about ways in which if you don't have what you need, you can either find it, you can contact someone, or we can help you figure out how to create the content you need on your own. So that's the goal here, but there's the portal overview. That is where you're going to find a lot of resources as far as training. Dixon also has a great video. If you have time, it's 5 minutes. I want to hear him talking about access and stuff. It's the funniest thing to me when he was like, "Oh, you started here. Here's this video I couldn't watch this." And it's dry. It's a little dry, Dixon, but
it is. You don't have to watch it. After today, you'll know everything. So don't worry about it. Has anyone not seen this page before? So the first time you're seeing the homepage. Okay, everyone's at least been there. Yes. Nice. So I'm currently the product owner for this. It was built, I guess it predates me. So I've been around 7 years. We relaunched it though a few years ago, and we took it off of SharePoint, built our own custom thing in Drupal, and we've been to conferences. We've seen other schools try to pull this off. It's not easy. It's always fun to watch videos of other people demoing their portals because we always get to nitpick over the decisions they made. But the idea is simple. It's just to bring together all this reporting content that's sitting out in these disparate places. We don't want people to have to go directly to the reporting servers. We'd rather them go to one place and kind of be more tool agnostic. You can see a lot of people are using it, getting good value out of it, but there's so much we can improve on, especially the navigation. For anyone who's just stumbled upon the homepage, it's where do I click next? That's been a big issue we're trying to fix, and I'll have a couple slides on that. But all these other tools, we could start integrating with that. I know we were working on just making it so you can have a Google Data Studio dashboard as well. So we're always trying to think of what tools are people using out there and how do we get it into this portal that we've built. So right off the bat, there's going to be nuance because ASC is a big place. So there are times where the first question you should probably ask yourself is, do I even need to be here? And the people who worked on the Workday implementation project, for example, I was on that project for 1.5 years, really stressed they want to do as much reporting as possible in that system. Take advantage of the tools we pay for, get that nice real-time data in the system that you're actually working in, if you're an accountant or a buyer or something like that. So there are always going to be situations where it makes more sense to go to the source system itself. And that's why they're not always going to be the experts on that. So you'll need to reach out to kind of local teams there, like financial services will know what Workday is capable of. Same goes for Salesforce. So any questions on that? Do you want to take this one?
Yes. So as I was saying, portal overview, the one thing that you'll see is it provides a list of popular content as well. So if you're not sure where to start, sometimes you'll like get inspiration from just saying, what are people in here searching for? So you'll see that at the bottom. But then there's the link to the video up top where you hit play that I was talking about with Dixon. And then we have a new hire data orientation page that you will see is going to be very complex, but has a lot of resources there available for you. At the bottom here, there's the link. So you'll have access to the slide deck where you can click on that as well.
Yeah, and the theme of this presentation is really going to be to expect change. We want this to be different. This is really just me taking a swing at what could I put on a page and playing around with the idea of having a dashboard that just tells you what the most popular content is. It's a temporary solution. We'll eventually develop it much better to where that's just built into the site itself. It's not just a dashboard sitting on a page. But this is a really key concept. So that video that Twyla was laughing at earlier, this is going to be important to know no matter what the nav looks like a year from now, because I doubt we're going to go away from this concept of groups. Obviously, you want to group your content both for security purposes and navigation. So everything is based on a group, and that is kind of our primary way to navigate the portal right now. So eventually this groups page will look a little different. Twyla will have a slide on it that goes into a little more detail. But every group has a group owner, and every group that you request, if you're generating content, gets a folder in all of our source systems. So we try to be smart about data governance here at ASC. This is our way of executing on that vision. And it kind of evolves over time. So we try to get smarter about it. We try to make groups more flexible, but generally we'll have power users and viewers within each group. So most groups are pretty straightforward. We'll see a little later that you can set your group to be open to anyone with student data access, for example. And the forms that you fill out are pretty straightforward. We may consolidate these into one to make it easier. But for the most part, no one has to worry about that. You just click on this button if you don't have access, and it takes you to the right form that's already pre-filled for you. So it's pretty seamless once you find the page that you need. And that is the beauty of this portal. You don't get that kind of messy access denied, don't pass go, don't collect $200, you're done message that you would get if we just sent you straight to the server. So really proud of this feature that our developers came up with.
All right, so here's the new hire.
Yeah. Great question, Mike. So Twyla will talk a little bit more later about the different kind of use cases. So the most common big groups, enrollment and records being one of them, where it's the key registrar data team, where they put all of their content that's open to anyone with student data access. So back in the day, we had my reports with a nice folder structure that just said student. And most people just got access to that student folder, and it had 1,000 queries in it. We're kind of organizing our groups around departments more, also the content, but really it's team driven. So admission services will have their couple groups, and our registrar will have their couple groups, and you can request access to any of those. So thank you for that.
Okay, so the new hire data orientation page. So this is mostly for power users. A lot of times they're providing data on how they can create reports if they're trying to use Tableau to bring you the content that you actually need. But you may find yourself progressing and having more questions about reports. You may say, hey, I want to tweak this, or can I do this? Can this be easier? I think Sam, me and you met one time, and you're like, I want to learn how to do this on my own. Like, I don't want this thing. I don't want to have to look at 5 different reports. I just want it in one place. So this is a place where you can start developing. There's a lot of resources. Don't feel overwhelmed. I was when I first started. There was like a list of like links. It's like, here's databases. Here's how to use Tableau report builder. And I'm like, I don't know where to start. So but there are a lot of resources. This is could look different, right, Dixon? Just to make it easier for you guys to search and look for the things that you actually need where you're not overwhelmed. But it has a lot of great resources in here. So we put the link down there because this is an important page for you. So you'll be able to click on that. Anything to add, Dixon?
This page is definitely for the curious. So it is a nice way. If you know your role is going to be data oriented and possibly a role where you'll be creating content, I highly recommend this page. For someone who's just consuming content, which is really what this presentation is geared towards, I would say there are some concepts that are nice to know here. It's nice to know where the data warehouse is. Do you have to know? Probably not. But in the future, this is just our first swing at it. Our great teammate Josh Johnson threw this together. We'll iterate on this page and try to make it better so that it's more clear, of what you need to know if you're not a content creator. This is definitely geared toward builders.
All right. So what are the key pages in the portal? So you'll see groups, as Dixon mentioned. That's probably the place where you're going to be visiting frequently, especially if you're looking for reporting content. There is also the Explore button, where you will be able to hopefully get better at better search functionality. So if you don't even know what group to go to, you can type in a name and hopefully find the group that you need access to locate that report. The other piece was support that I touched on. That is key for you, especially if you don't want to be around drifting, just looking at the page, frustrated that you can't find what you're looking for. Reach out to us. And then there's a My Content page, and you'll see some slides on that. I'm going to make sure I show you what they look like. So this is the My Groups page that I'm mentioning. Dixon showed you before. You can see that it automatically goes to My Groups. So anything you have access to is what you see first. But of course, there's probably something you don't have access to. And then that's where you'll see them all groups. And you can click on that and you can search the whole list. Now, the search functionality isn't always great. Sometimes I give the example of WP Carry. Some say like W dot space P carry, or some may say WPC. We hope that you can find both when you're thinking about WP Carry, but that's not always the case. So sometimes just scrolling through the list and going to W's may help you until we can make it a little bit easier to search. But this is an important page.
And definitely a page we want to iterate on, where if you just think about when you're shopping for something on Amazon, the power of that sidebar filter pane where you can, look at different categories. If you could filter by college, it's a small change like that is going to really make this search much better. So it's on the roadmap.
All right, and then the Explore page that I talked about. So this is, Dixon has been in a pain point and loves this page, but we hope for it to do what I said, which is you can search for things that you don't know, where a group you don't know if what group it could be in. So that is something we're working on updating and making easier. Anything else on the Explore page, Dixon, that you want to mention?
Right now, so this is our top priority. We want this to be as good as it can possibly be. That 10,000 number I mentioned, right now it's returning all 10,000 results when only about 4,000 of those are actually deemed worthy of the power users, so they can set the visibility. They also have a toggle for promoted content that we can leverage later on. So this page is going to look a lot different and become a lot more useful in the future. We're definitely excited about having both the group way of navigating, the search, and then ideally kind of a role-based navigation as well. So if you're a business operations manager, these are the most common reports for your job title. Like we have the data of usage and the HR data of department. HR data is not perfect. It doesn't always align. Everyone has weird job titles, but I feel like the opportunity is massive for us to make this such an easy to use portal. But today, this is what it's like. When you go to Explore, you can try entering your search terms. And if you struggle to get results again, you can reach out to us for help. We're always just one click away.
Yes. And then so the last thing is the My Content page. And this is for you. So frequent pages that you visit. I know sometimes I use my bookmark because it could be easier, but you have this ability within the analytics portal. And there's also cool things where you can see recent content. So if you can't remember the last thing you viewed, you're like, oh, I just looked up something that was useful. You'll probably see it in the My Content. And as well as favorites. And so there are like a couple that I know I deal with often, and I don't want to always search through now a lot of bookmarks that I have for my job. So I'll just be like, okay, this is in the portal. I'll look at my favorites in here and I'll just go right through there. So, and then there's below there, there's also what's being used in the data community. So if you scroll down, there's reports and stuff that are listed there.
Yep, and we do know people use that favorites option because when we broke it, we heard from everybody. I want my favorites back.
All right. And so again, analytics support, what can you see? So you'll see we have Slack is a good resource that not a lot of people know and take advantage of. We've added some hashtags here. So if you don't remember, you can go to that analytics support and you'll see where some of the most common ones are. It talks about consult and just general, basically ServiceNow knowledge-based search questions. That's more geared towards, like I said, power users. But if you're curious, there are some resources there within the analytics support page.
So we already touched on some of our pain points. It's nice that we have survey data. People do fill out surveys when they request access to things, and they'll let us know if something goes wrong. Our scores used to be way lower. And then I came in. No, I just did what we do best here. Like we dug through the data and we saw how many requests were getting stuck for months, like 6 months sometimes. And I just used one of our tools, Alteryx, to set up a workflow that would ping us when they get stale for 5 business days. And now Twyla is doing an amazing job of keeping those moving. They're often stuck on a supervisor that doesn't realize they have to go approve. So you can see our scores have gone way up. That's not really the issue anymore. It's finding the group. It's how do I even know what to request access to? What reports exist? What do I need? What data do I need for my job? Those are the questions that we're trying to answer right now. And I'm just super excited about this recent engagement just within the last month or so with some UX designers from EdPlus. They hired a consultant who delivered us instantly like 100 slide deck of all the pain points. He just instantly figured out everything that's wrong with the portal and gave us some suggestions. So it's just going to be, we're going to need some time to implement those solutions, but I feel like most of them are not super complicated. It's just going to take some dev time. So really excited about our roadmap, revamped homepage, just that real estate, the really important real estate of that first button on the homepage. What does that experience look like once you click there? We want that to be really useful to people. The improved Explore search is pretty straightforward. Same with the group page. Really popular content recommendations. I feel like that would be a game changer for this. And that's what sets other colleges' portals apart, I feel like, is when they can really get that almost Netflix style recommendation down. Actually, no one really likes the Netflix recommendation. It's probably a bad analogy, but you know what I mean. So content creators will keep making better dashboards. I'm really excited about the future there. Our community is just, I feel like, really hit a tipping point where we have so many people that have been around a few years and are really confident in building great stuff. So really excited about the future.
All right. So Mike had already asked this question, but what are groups? Some important groups. And the one that I want to touch on probably that you'll deal with the most, or that we see dealt with the most, especially if you deal with anything student related. You may say, okay, how many students registered, things like that. I won't actually go into one of the reports because it does require you to have completed FERPA. So to access some of that stuff because of student data. But if you click over there to the next ones, there's things that I want you to know about groups. And the first thing is when you get into enrollment and records report page, they do really a great job of like listing out their reports. They give you descriptions. I think they're pretty good about providing metadata too. They really take time to try to make it make sense to all of you guys, probably because it helps them too, because they don't want to get dinged with a bunch of emails. So, but it really is helpful. So if you click the button, Dixon, I want you to see a couple of things. So see that arrow? I wanted you to make sure you understood the red dot. But the other thing is they have further information. So what I want you guys to at least take away here today is sometimes if you can't find the report you're looking for, it's in enrollment records, or they have a report, it's not pulling in what you need. A lot of these groups, not everyone. So if you don't see one, let us know. provide their contact information to the people who create these dashboards. So RegTech does a really good job of saying, hey, you can contact us if you have questions. But they do a good job of trying to help you like self-service. And so if you click again, what you'll see is they also provide their own training. Now, they have videos. I've watched a couple of them because sometimes it's about knowing what does this even mean? What is it called? First day. What is it? 21st day?
21st day.
Yeah, 21st day. That matters, right? Your numbers are going to look different. So they do a good job and they have video. So not only do we have our training resources, some of these groups have their own training. They have videos and things that you can watch that will kind of help you figure out how to use their data sets because they put a lot of time and effort into it, but it doesn't matter if you don't know how to use it. So.
Yep. And I believe Josh Johnson has done a session on, I think maybe later this afternoon, our data dictionary tool that's currently kind of focused more towards people developing content. It's of course also we're gonna want to serve the data citizens consuming content, and he's working on a nice custom front end that will integrate with the portal. So you don't have to be a developer to go in and try to understand some of the jargon at ASU. If you're onboarding, our data dictionary will eventually be a key part of that onboarding process.
All right. So we talked to you about the portal itself, but what you really care about is the reporting content that we use. So the first thing I want to talk about is something that puts the power in your hands a little bit, and then we'll go into the ones that our content creators do. And so one of the main ones is Excel Power Query. I don't know if you familiar with this. Yeah, okay. We got one. I'll take it. So Power Query is basically a tool where you do not need a workspace. And I know we had that workspace question, and we'll touch on that towards the end. But basically, if you know that there is data out there, but it is not to your liking, or if you just want to join data, they have created data sets here that you can use and kind of join and mash up things. So I put the things to know. All you need to do is have the add-on. There's a Power Query add-on to Excel. There was also in that new hire orientation page, like I said, if you're curious, there are actually training resources out there. And one of them is Power Query 101. So it will talk about the different data sets you can connect to. You do have to have access to the group that provides those large data sets for you guys, but they created that content so that they just give you a large file. You can filter down to what you need for either your college or for what your reporting needs are. But this is the one thing that you can say, hey, I don't need a workspace. I'm not really there yet with me being like a creator where I'm going to be using a report builder, things like that. So this is a good tool. If you have any questions about it and you say, hey, yes, I do want to learn, reach out to us. We can try to get you started and answer any questions you have.
So it's been really fun over the past 7 years, kind of learning about these new tools, tools that have existed in Excel, watching the community learn them alongside us as we have done presentations at an actual workshop at a past data conference, taking people through Power Query, finding out in the presentation that you just couldn't use a Mac. It's like pretty big learning curve to some of this stuff. But once we get over that, we can share with the community. Turns out Excel just released Power Query for Macs in May. So I'm always amazed when you actually see the humans behind a product like Excel, this legendary tool that everyone uses, and you assume no one actually works on. There's a team of 30 or so people at Microsoft making that tool better. The Mac Power Query still leaves a lot to be desired. They're working on it actively. But as more data becomes available and as CSV files that you can connect to, it's just going to make it way easier for you guys to get data. So it'll be interesting to see that evolve over the next couple of years. So that's one of the things that we're trying to really be smart about is essentially what we're doing is just, if I do this for my dashboards, I have a dashboard that's shared out in the portal. People tell me, I just want the Excel. I just want this in Excel. I love the dashboards, but I want to be able to easily get to the row level data. I say, great, no problem. I'll just do an additional output as a CSV file. That's what we're talking about here, and how we structure that in this file share service that Amazon has that we use. We have to be intentional about it, just like everything else, data governance wise. So I'm actively working through those decisions on how we do the permissions and everything. I think the most simple thing would be to just have it match the groups. So if you have access to the group and you have access to the folder, you can go after the data set. So that's our current thinking on it, but it's actively evolving. So thank you for the question. Yeah, it's really about taking that data warehouse data, having someone more techie build something that enriches that data, makes it easier for you guys, putting it in a place that's more accessible to you. So you don't need a workspace. You don't have to connect to the data warehouse. You're just consuming via your favorite tool, Excel. So Excel is a big part of our strategy, just like every other company in the world or organization. It's just the tool that everyone wants to use. Even if you build the nicest dashboard in the world, they want to see the data in Excel. And we're all going to give people what they want. So this tool here, go ahead, Twyla.
Sure. So I've just mentioned report builder. You don't have to worry about that unless you move forward and you say, hey, I want a workspace. I want to create some of these data sets or reports that you'll see in the portal. But what it is an app, not an app. It's kind of for the word escaped me, Dixon. Not dashboard.
As a list generator.
Sorry, it's really early, guys. I haven't had coffee. But it is a list generator. So more so if you're like, you don't want to use Excel, this is Report Builder has so many use cases. This guy is the guru, which is why we bring it up. His name is Steven White. He's on our team. He loves Report Builder. He lives by it. So anytime you have questions about Report Builder, all I care about is you reach out to him. I know some of them answered the question right about how many people are currently using it, but that 2,000 is there. And
yeah, I would say about 60% of the traffic that comes to analytics.asu.edu is hitting a Report Builder report. And I think Mike likes this tool because it's cheap, right? You don't have to fork over the 700,000 that you do for Alteryx.
Out a big list of reports. You don't need a fancy dashboard and filters. Just want like to spit out a list, and I want 6 columns. And here's what they are.
So if you come to online, Mike is talking about how it's a great tool for just generating a list, which is a very common thing at ASU. So give me my list of students, let me filter by my college, that sort of thing. And Steven's done a great job engaging with the registrar data team to build all that great report builder content.
Yeah. Oh, that's my thing going off. Okay. So this is what it looks like in the portal. So if you see anything that looks like that red design here where that arrow is, that's how you know it is a report builder report. So the things to note is, and I wanted this to be here for you guys. So if you look at the slide deck, you'll be able to see how to navigate it because each one could have different filters and drop downs. So if I could give you anything to take away, oftentimes when people think they can't access a report, what they do is I'll tell them, did you actually fill it in? So Red's tech team always says that, and like I think their presentations that I watch is, no, give it time either to load or you didn't actually fill in all there. So I added the drop down up here so you can see that you'll need to actually insert like a term if that's required. And then you can refresh and then you'll hit view report. So that's a big piece of it.
Yeah, that elusive view report button in the top right. But another way you can identify this is in this view details drop down. You get to see what source system it's coming from. So kind of a pro tip there. But generally, once you kind of get used to that layout of what the filters look like at the top, you'll start to connect the dots that these reports are all built with the same tool.
And there's that favorites thing that I talked about again. So if there's something you like, use the favorites, click on it, and then it'll be there when you click the view my content.
And you also get that nice view here of what Twyla mentioned earlier, where the registrar data team is pretty great about putting metadata, what we call metadata in there about these reports. It lets you know the tables they're using, what their data sources are. So some of this is more useful to the more techie crowd, but just knowing things like how the data is sorted, what parameters you can use, and the purpose is really big. So this was another thing that we did really in my reports back in the day is every query had that first info page. We want to try to make that a thing in the portal as well. So the other big tool we use here at ASU is Tableau, and we have a shared Tableau server with U of A and NAU that ABOR helps pay for. So we're probably going to have that tool for quite a while. And we have about 130 people making content, a lot of people viewing dashboards. Samantha Carter is our new product owner for that. Excited to have her. And how you identify this, same deal. The view details drop down. You'll see this Tableau logo. Bought for what, $1 billion by Salesforce within the last year or so. So they're doing pretty well. And it is a very fun tool to use if you're building dashboards. So one pro tip here that I wish the entire community would know is on most dashboards, you can drill down. It's just a little unintuitive for how expensive that was, that acquisition by Salesforce. This is one feature that still gets me to this day where I will click on this drill down feature and not immediately get the little pop up here. But once you get good at it, it's like second nature. And that is how you get to that row level data that everyone wants from dashboards. So you click and hover. The hover play is the key. Just click and then move your mouse there until this little tab pops up. This top gray bar will be hidden by default. And then you click and hover, and then you get this nice view data pop up. And once you're there, you click on this full data tab, you click show all columns, and you've got your nice row level data. You can then click on download all rows. I've just seen people do this live enough times through Zooms when they're sharing their screen and they don't know how to do this. And then once they learn how to do it, it's a total game changer. So tell your colleagues, share this knowledge. This is a very highly used tool at ASU. You want to get the most out of it. So similar to drilling down into run metric, you can take all the data behind any pivot table or viz. Not every dashboard will have this enabled. Some people don't want people to download the data. But similar to drilling down to one thing, you have to tell Tableau what you want. And you do that by simply clicking and then deselecting and then clicking that download button. Again, not the most intuitive thing, but it is hard when you have a dashboard made up of 7 different data sources. The tool needs to know that you're trying to get. It won't just let you download every data set behind the entire dashboard. So this is what that looks like. You get the data button here. Sometimes it'll be grayed out again because of security reasons. You can always submit a feedback if you want this button to be enabled. We can work with the report developer to give you what you need. Nice feature as well as this custom view feature. So if you're constantly interacting with the dashboard that has a ton of filters that you always have to change, just go make your own view. You never have to worry about changing the filters again. Another feature that's probably willfully underused at ASU. And you can check that Make It My Default button to have it be the same view that you see every time when you go back to the dashboard. All right, my favorite topic every year at the data conference. We have one My Reports user, right? How many Hyperion Studio users do we have? Or has anyone ever heard of that before? Okay, a couple. So it's the tool that will never die. I mentioned it got bought by Oracle and killed. And what that means in the IT world is we basically have to get our organization off of it because there are security concerns. If any tool that connects to it, like the data warehouse, if some kind of connector breaks, that tool is unsupported by the company, you're kind of on your own. And that's really bad in the IT world. Would that sum it up for you, Mike? Yeah, so we definitely want to get off of it. Granted, we're a nonprofit, we're scrappy. We will use this until we get every last drop of value out of it. And it really was a truly great tool. Unfortunately, reality is the truly great tools get bought by the big guys, and then they take all the developers and they try to just integrate their product into their own. It happens all the time. So we love it. We really want people to find a newer tool. One of the biggest challenges, though, is it is truly great for directly connecting to the data warehouse. Our other tools happen to be good at that too, but the familiar is hard to get away from sometimes. So some pros and cons here. If your department is still using it, it's probably because you're in financial services or financial data adjacent, where you're querying tables that are 350 million rows. So you kind of want to be in a workspace to begin with because the data is big enough to justify it. We do have some reports that deal with financial data, but really that core group of financial services to business services really loves this tool. But the big caveat here is you have to have a workspace in order to run any Hyperion Studio queries. They will not integrate with the portal. So it's a pretty big downside. But eventually we'll hopefully win people over and get them off of that tool.
All right, so we talked about some of these tools, and then so the question is, should I request the workspace? It's a big question to ask yourself. But here are the two questions that I think you can ask yourself that kind of tells you, and that could change over time too. But the thing is, does my job require somewhat frequent query, report, dashboard development? If the answer is yes, maybe you do need a workspace. If you're unsure, you can always reach out to us. We'll kind of advise you. And then does my team rely heavily on queries built in Hyperion, which is what he just talked about, those large data sets. So those are really the two main reasons. If it is that you have a report that you see that already exists, that we have a lot of, like the RegTech team or some, when it comes to financial services, that are there, but it just doesn't look the way you want it to look, maybe that doesn't mean you need a workspace. Maybe that just means that you need to use like a dashboard where you said where you can add a view that makes it easier for you to view the content, but it does live here already.
Yeah, and this I know that concept of when do I use Excel Power Query and when do I need a workspace, when do I use a different tool? It's not something that it's super easy to explain, but a lot of it does come down to the size of the data. If we try to put all 350 million financial data rows into a CSV and say, oh, just go connect to it in Excel, probably not going to have a great outcome. In my experience, as soon as you get to about 250,000 rows, you start to see a slowdown in that tool. Excel is not really meant to be a database querying tool. There are better tools for that. So that's what Twyla and I and our teammates try to guide people to the right solution. The answer isn't always super straightforward. So we're always happy to help. Just sit down, try to understand your needs. We got the great Bob Soupdown, who's been here forever, managing those workspaces with over 600 of them, as you saw in the trivia. And a lot of people benefiting from that downstream work that people do there. So it's a great tool. We can spin them up, we can shut them down. The cost is, somewhat significant when you add them all up, but we're pretty good about being smart with money, where if we notice you haven't been on them in the last 90 days, we just shut them down. Plenty of people get deprovisioned every month. It's not a big deal. Don't ever feel bad if you think you needed one and it turns out you didn't, or you got sidetracked. We're not going to, be mad at you for that. We're just trying to save some money. And you can talk about this feedback.
Okay, I'll take it. So why is it important? Because it is, how else can we help you get what you need? So we're trying to close the feedback loop. Me and Dixon talked about this a lot, and especially with the data citizens, as we call you guys. Those are people who don't need to create original reports. Sometimes it's hard for us to sit and figure out what you need. Me and Dixon have been in hour sessions where okay, what do they need? How do they want to find reports? Is this helping them? So a lot of times we depend on your feedback. So if you know something isn't working right, or you're just confused and you're frustrated, please tell us. This feedback will allow us to, you can click in there, you can put a description. Please be as specific as possible if you can. So if it's about a report, for example, we'll get some in here that say, this report is broken, I can't view it, or I don't know, this data doesn't look right. So we can reach out to the report developers. If you know how and you see the RegTech, you can reach out to them yourself. But if you're not sure, maybe don't know the right question to ask, we can do that too. But just use the feedback and let us know whether something's going wrong. If you want to put you're doing right in there, I'll take that as well. You want to take
those occasionally. We do those too, but I also genuinely love seeing this, because this was from Monday. And if you just put yourself in Professor Codell's shoes, I immediately after we got this, I got a response immediately back. In her signature, there are 11 lines of all the different positions she holds. She's doing stuff with BIT. Think about how busy this person is. Think about them going to the portal and just wanting to have something be easy in their difficult work life at ASU. And then they find that it's hard for them to get their list of students. That's all they're trying to do is go see who's in my art history program, right? Put yourself in their shoes and then understand the frustration they feel sometimes. And then to have someone immediately respond, turns out they just were able to export it to Excel, filter in Excel for just their students, turned out to be not that difficult. But instead of her having to go through all that, imagine just putting one little filter on that report that lets her pick her ACAD plan with a nice description there for our history students. Like, if we can get that feedback loop going where the report developer knows to add that drop down, you know, that's one less frustrated user for us. So that's really what our focus is. And we are so happy to help people who are frustrated like that. So it's a big service that we like to offer. Also, our Slack channels, huge thing we've been rolling on over the last 5 years. So where's that data channel? We want more people in there. So I highlighted a few of these that are kind of more focused for end users, and definitely get involved in the ASU community Slack. If you can't find that, let us know. But that Ask Analytics channel is a great way to just get a hold of us. There's always people chatting in here and answering questions. So we want you to be a part of the conversation. You can just kind of have it on mute if you want until you need it, that sort of thing. But we appreciate your time. I think that's it.
Yes, I have one more thing to say, and he is not going to like it, but I saw a special appearance from Stephen White, who I chose for report builder. He is right there. So he's going to say, if you want to reach out and you want to learn report builder, he'll talk to you all day. He showed me what was it? Tic-tac-toe? Yeah, he created that. And why? For what reason? I have no idea. But he's like, oh yeah, he did that. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. If you have questions on that, just put them in the chat and I'll get to them. And please take the survey for the conference and enjoy the lunch and slice over there today. We appreciate it.